Hey fellas, me Trapper here. Now we're going to do something a little different this trapping season. I've probably got 300 or 400 videos on my channel of how to trap, how to use footholds, how to use conibears, how to use snares, how to cook wild game, and I've just about done all I'm interested in doing in that regard. So we're going to do something different this season. We're going to do knife reviews, especially knives for the trap line and knives for turning animals into food. So we're going to do a whole series of videos here. We're going to use little bitty knives, we're going to use medium-sized knives, we're going to use big knives, we're going to use cheap knives, we're going to use expensive knives, we're going to use kept parts, we're going to use nest mucks, we're going to use skinning knives, everything you can think of. Anything that I've got access to, we're going to put it through its paces. And we're just going to see how it performs. It's not designed to decide what blade steel is best or what manufacturer is best. You can get on YouTube and go through all of that you want. But I'm simply going to do a series showing how each type of knife performs when it comes to turning an animal into food. But the first video in this series is something that nobody ever seems to focus on or touch on, and that's the knife sheath itself. Now, any discussion of pistols or firearms or anything like that, people are always going to talk about holsters, and they get all in-depth and detail on their pistol holster. But the funny thing is people will go out and spend $300 or $400 on a custom knife, and they don't really think twice about the sheath. And to me, the sheath is just as important as the knife, because if you don't have a good sheath, you can lose your knife, which is not good. And if you don't have a good quality sheath, then you can actually get injured. If your knife falls out when you trip and fall, it's not a good situation. So let's talk knife sheaths. Let's go sit down and let me give you my thoughts on what makes a good knife sheath, what I like and what I don't like, and let me share with you some of the options that are out there. Alright, let's start with the basics. One of the first things that you're going to notice about all these sheaths that I'm going to show you is that they are made out of leather. You're not going to see any Kydex on this series at all. The only exception is sometimes I'll wear a neck sheath out of Kydex. But basically, when it comes to hunting knives, skinning knives, I'm a leather guy. It's just I guess it's old school in me. But you know what? The thing that always interests me is people will go to extreme lengths to make a great blade. This is a Battle Horse Patriot Scout here. It's an 01 steel. My car to handle. This is a great knife. There's nothing wrong with this knife. I love it. And honestly, there's nothing wrong with the sheath. This is a stock sheath here. It's very serviceable. You do get a good amount of retention on it. You're not going to lose the knife. It's sturdy. It's well made. It works. Okay, but I like something a little nicer. If I'm going to put good money into a nice knife, then I want a nice sheath. And so let me give you a comparison between what you get for a stock sheath versus what's available in an aftermarket or a custom sheath. Now this sheath here is made by Delta Sheath. You can go to their website. Lewis up there in Michigan does great work. Really good work. This is made out of an English bridle leather, which is a very nice, it's rather supple leather compared to some of his other offerings. You can get it in whatever leather you want, whatever thread that you want, and this has got one of my bark rivers in it. So let's set the knife aside, because we're not interested in the knife. We're interested in the sheath. So the first thing that you can look at the belt loop. Okay, on a stock sheath, there's nothing wrong with that, but you can see how much play is in there. When that's on your belt, that's going to move up or down. Let's take a look at a custom sheath. Look at that. You see how much tighter the tolerance is on that? That's a much better fitting sheath right there. If you look at the details, when you go and you put the knife in here, you get it in there, right here, your thumb, you see how that is flared out a little bit? You see how that's rolled over? That gives you a natural push with your thumb right there. That's just something that's a little extra. You don't get that on a stock sheath. You can tell there's been a little bit more thought, a little bit more time and care taken with it. You can look, at the attention to detail in the sides on it here, the welt. and it's the same thing. There's nothing wrong with this sheath, and I'm not criticizing a stock sheath, but if you want something better, you can get something better. You can get something that's going to fit better, give you better retention, and will serve you better, in my opinion. So that's just a quick look at a difference between two of the same types of sheaths. Different type of leather, a little bit more attention to detail, a little bit better design, and in my opinion, this sheath is worth paying extra to have. Now, whether or not you're willing to pay extra, that's up to you. That's your decision. Now, there are some manufacturers who will go to the next level. This, as you can see, is a Bark River sheath, and this is an ambidextrous style sheath, and it's got my little Canadian in there in 3V. Nice little blade. We're not here to talk about blades. We're here to look at the sheath. Now, this sheath comes with what they call their EEP treatment. Basically, it's been treated for weatherproofing, etc., etc. That's a discussion we're going to have, whether to treat your sheath or not to treat your sheath. But you can see this is kind of a step up. You can see it's got better attention to detail than a lot of stock sheaths. You've got the ability to carry it vertically, got the ability to carry it horizontally. You've got rivets on here. That's a nice touch. A lot of times you can use that to zip tie it to molly or mount it in a different way that you may not have been able to. And you can see it's a perfectly good sheath. Very, very well made. Not a problem with that. Now, let's compare it to an aftermarket sheath. Now, this is also a sheath made by Delta Sheath. And one of the things that you can see is that when you look at the stitching, we have a single row of stitching compared to a double row of stitching. And once again, you get the high quality attention to detail on it. And this is designed as a little pocket sheath. You wear this inside your pocket, clips on there, stick the knife down in there, and you know, rides inside your pocket. Nice little touch. So that's just one of the things that you can look at. These are both great sheaths, and in fact, I would love to see Delta put rivets on theirs, because when I'm wearing a chest pack, my Hill People Gear chest pack, I actually zip tie this sheath here into the molly, and that's not possible with this sheath because it doesn't have rivets. So that's something to consider, is whether or not a sheath has rivets and how you're going to mount it and where you're going to wear it. Now, another one of my favorite sheath makers is Muskrat Man. And if you go to muskratmanknives.com, I believe that's his website, he now manufactures the Meat Trapper line of knives. And those of you that have watched this channel know that I designed a line of knives with a nice little ergonomic handle here. And you can see that's the Muskrat Man logo right there. But anyway, we're not here to look at the knife, we're here to look at the sheath. One thing you'll notice is this sheath not only has good retention, you know, it's not only going to hold the blade in there nice and securely, but it has a flap. I like a flap on my sheaths. When I'm out in the beaver swamp and I'm slipping and sliding in mud, when I'm tripping and falling down face first, falling down, busting my ass in the mud, it's very easy to lose stuff. I can't tell you how many Spydercos or other little clip-it knives that I have lost out of my pocket climbing and clambering over stuff. With this, you're not going to lose the knife. And if you're old school like me, you probably remember buck knives. Most of the fixed bladed buck knives came with a black leather sheath and had a snap on it. Now, I'm not out in the woods fighting the Taliban. I'm not, you know, I'm not Johnny Tactical or anything else. So in other words, I'm not having to get to my knife instantaneously. I don't carry my knives upside down or any of that crap. And I like a flap on it. I would love to see something like this offered with a high security flap. It not only keeps you from losing your blade, but it also protects it. I mean, you know, how many times do we see people that have really nice custom knives? You know, like this is a desert ironwood handle. You know, I'm on the creek bank right here. You slip and fall down. if you had a flap on your knife, it's going to protect that desert iron one. And there's a lot of materials out there that people use that are softer than that. You know, a lot of acrylics and things like that. I'm not into all that. But my point is, I really like a flap on a sheath, and I don't understand why it has fallen out of favor. The only thing I can think of is because it's not tactical, and it's not Johnny Hero looking. You know, it's not cool. All right, let's talk about the type of leather itself, because, you know, most of the time when we talk about a leather sheath, there's not a lot of discussion given to the actual type of leather itself. And it's my understanding that there's only 2 tanneries left in the United States that are doing honest-to-God vegetable tanning, which is what you want. When you do vegetable tanning, you're looking at a leather that is a tougher, more durable, longer-lasting leather, whereas a chrome-tanned leather is more of a supple leather, kind of stuff they use in jackets and couches and things like that. Now, these 3 sheaths here are from Delta Sheath, and I've spent some time on the phone talking with Lewis up there. Great guy, very knowledgeable. And we have basically the softest to the most durable leather. He offers 3 different types of leather. This is an English bridle leather, and I tell you, this stuff is just, it's nice. It's buttery, and you know, it's flexible, and it just feels good. It's a very supple, nice leather. I really like this stuff. I was really impressed by the English bridle leather. Next up in durability is his skirting leather, and this is sort of in the middle right here. And you can see this is also a nice leather, nice and thick, vegetable tanned. This has been used a little bit. You can see it's gotten pretty good break in. And then this leather here is what he calls the Herman oak leather, and this is without a doubt the thickest, toughest, hardest, most durable leather that I've run across. This stuff is, and I've used this for a while now, but to me, I don't see how you can wear this Herman oak leather out. This stuff is very stiff. It's almost boardy, and of course it's going to be, you know, it's going to take a while to break in. But the point is not only is the design of the sheath important, not only is the construction important, not only are the features important, but the type of leather itself is important. And you do have a choice of what type of leather you like. Do you want a soft, supple leather? You want something in the middle? Or are you looking for the survive the apocalypse leather? Next, let's talk about wet forming a leather sheath. Okay, a lot of people love it. A lot of people don't love it. Personally, I'm in the don't love it category. What I've got here is I've got an LT Wright camp muck, neat little nest muck design, little skin and knife, A2 steel, but it's in a Delta Shield sheath, and as you can see, if I shake that up and down, that's got good retention there. That's not going to just fall out. Nice, good firm retention. This is a leather sheath that originally was with this blade when I bought it. You can see it's been wet formed. Wet forming is the process of soaking that leather till it's soaking wet, then putting it in a mold with the blade in it, and then basically making the sheath conform to the outline of the knife. Looks great, man. Looks wonderful. And as you can see, it takes very little for that to come out. I'm barely shaking that. I mean, that's gonna fall right out. In other words, the long-term effect of wet forming is a loss of retention, and it's, in my opinion, it's almost a complete and total loss of retention. I have no use for a wet formed sheath. Like I said, once again, if I'm out slogging around in the beaver swamp and I've got something on my chest or I've got something on my waist or what have you, and I slip and fall, I do not want a razor sharp knife falling out of this sheath. You know, I would much rather have a razor sharp knife protected this way than that way. So for me, you know, it's your knife, it's your sheath, you do anything you want to it. I believe in personal freedom and personal responsibility, but for me, nope. Finally, the last topic, and to me, once again, this is a matter of personal opinion, and that is to treat the sheath or to not treat the sheath. That's the question. Now, this sheath right here, like I said, has been treated with what they call the EEP treatment. It's basically, they heat the leather up and they put the leather conditioner in it and rub it in and all of that. You know, people use Obanoffs, people use different types of treatments. But the idea is that it works the oil into the leather. It supposedly increases the waterproofness of the leather, and it makes the leather more supple and more weather resistant. That's the claim. Then you have this Muskrat Man Sheath here. I've never treated it. It's just seen a couple of seasons of hard use, and it's breaking in nicely, still going good. So I've got one sheath that's treated, one sheath that's not. Now, when I talk to people that are leather workers that make these sheaths, they do not like these treatments. They feel that the treatments will soften the leather, and that is weaken the fibers of the leather. They feel that when extreme heat is applied to the leather to get the oil to soak in, that it can have a detrimental impact on the stitching. It can have a detrimental impact on some of the glue or epoxy that's used to put the knife sheath together. And as one gentleman told me, he said, you might as well throw my sheath in a deep fryer. So I think you'll find that most leather workers come out on the nay side of treating the sheath. They prefer that their sheath be left in its natural form, and that leather or preservatives only be applied if it gets wet, dries out, starts to crack, etc., etc., etc. To me, it's a personal preference. Personally, and this is just my personal preference, I like a softer, more supple sheath. That's just me. If this sheath only lasts a few years, that's fine with me. I'll pay to replace it. In other words, I don't have to have a lifetime sheath. And so if treating the sheath weakens the fiber and it makes it last a little less longer, that's a price that I personally am willing to pay. You may be different. And of course, it may depend on your environment. Anybody that's watched my videos, you know that I'm out in the swamps. You know that I'm out there when it's 100 degrees. The humidity is high. And somebody else that lives in the desert, completely different situation. I'm around water all the time, so to me, it's a little bit more important than maybe somebody who isn't. But once again, that's up to you. That's a personal preference thing. Well, I hope that was useful and interesting, and I hope you're looking forward to the new series on skinning knives that we're going to be doing this year. And don't forget, check out Meat Trapper Radio. It's my podcast. We're up to episode number 272. And we also have our own Meat Trapper Telegram channel and our Patreon, which is chocked full of a lot of bonus content, movies, books, and everything else. A lot of stuff, a lot of videos that I can't put on YouTube. So anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll see y'all as soon as the weather cools off and it feels like trapping weather. We'll be back.